Okay, we're staying in the studio for right now with the Director of Entrepreneurship Platform at Washington University. This is Cliff Holcamp. Cliff, thank you for being here with us. A couple of things really sparked my interest there, and I want to kind of pick up where we left off with you. Something, real quick, before we get to some of the things that they just said were working, they also, this came up a couple of times, being under the radar. We're not really known for how good things are here for entrepreneurs. Would you agree with that, and why is that if that's the case?
Well, I would agree with that. I guess historical stereotypes don't put St. Louis as an innovation center, but it really is. And I think the actual activity here is preceding the PR story, which is great. It's kind of the Midwestern way of doing things. We prove it first, and then eventually everybody else will figure it out too.
Okay, why is it getting, why is that happening? Why is it getting better?
Well, I think what we've experienced in St. Louis is that we hit critical mass. For years, we've had all these independent activities. We've had all kinds of amazing programs, many of which we've been discussed today. And I theorize that we got enough activity, enough critical mass, that actually you started getting the interconnectivity between all these people. And when you get interconnectivity between people, you develop a community. And when you have a community, it develops a culture, and it's that culture that draws more people into it, and then you really have a story to tell. So I think you have to get to a certain critical mass before all those connections happen. And it's pretty amazing. I've actually seen a tipping point in the last really 18 months where we went from a group of unconnected individual efforts to truly being an entrepreneurial community, and it's really exciting to be a part of it.
Seems like a lot of our story around innovation involved. We just heard the word ag tech. We've heard a phrase we've heard kicked around, meds and eds. What are you seeing there? Why is that part of our story? And should it be more or less, or what do you think?
Well, it is part of the story. It's not the only part of the story. I think we have a pretty diverse entrepreneurial environment here in St. Louis, and our position strategically being in the Midwest, some of our natural resources here when it comes to some of the great companies that are here, some of our institutions like the Danforth Center, like Washington University, like the Botanical Garden. They are all institutions which really produce a lot of research as far as places where you can find these types of innovations.
So do you see that growing, expanding, continuing on that same track?
Well, it is. And I think if you look at great innovation centers around the country and even around the world, you'll find that there's a certain common formula, and one of which is that there are great universities in these regions. If you look at Silicon Valley, they have Stanford. If you look at Boston, there's MIT and Harvard and Cambridge. Even newer tech hubs like in Boulder, Colorado with the university there, or at Austin with the University of Texas. We have that infrastructure here with Washington University and SLU, as well as with UMSL and a lot of our other smaller regional colleges.
And Matt being an example, someone who came here for Washington University,
yeah.
How many Matts stay here, and can we do better at that?
You know, it's really amazing. I've been advising WashU students for the last 5 years. And the first 4 years I was at WashU, my students all wanted to get to Silicon Valley. A lot of them went to New York, some went to Chicago, many wanted to go home, but St. Louis wasn't on the radar. And what I can tell you is this is the first year that my best entrepreneurship students actually want to stay in St. Louis. St. Louis is on the list on pretty much every one of them. They are engaged, they're actively working with the startups down at T-Rex, they're working with the startups that are in our portfolio company at my venture capital firm, Cultivation Capital. And when you get the students involved and you get them working with these startups and part of the culture, they're drawn to that culture and they want to stay. And a lot of my best students are actually staying in St. Louis now, and it's on the radar screen now of all the students. Some will still go to Silicon Valley, but we're getting to keep a lot here, and that is a noticeable difference.
And anything specific they're saying that makes them want to do that?
They see the opportunities. They see the opportunities where they can have a meaningful role at exciting companies that are changing the world. And that's exciting to young people.
I know you judge some competitions in this arena as well. What do you look for in something that can be successful?
Well, that's a difficult question. So yeah,
because I'm going to be writing it down. So
yeah, really. Well, we can write a check too. I am a judge for the Olin Cup, also for Arch Grants, and it's also part of my job at Cultivation Capital. We're looking for a great management team, first of all, especially in really early stage. A great idea is, I guess, par for the course. We're assuming you're going to have a great idea, but then we're looking, do you have a team who can execute on that idea?
Okay, so someone who has that head knowledge, who maybe is trained as a scientist, how do they kind of make that leap to entrepreneur, and are we helping them here in St. Louis?
Well, Some do make the leap, some don't. Some have the additional business intuition and sensibility. Some partner. So a very common scenario you'll see is you'll have that great medical mind or engineering mind, and they'll partner with somebody who's
Because we've
more
got a lot of
business
those
schools.
minds here in St. Louis.
We do.
And so are we capitalizing on that?
Well, we are. In fact, I see a lot of our MBA students and even our undergraduate business school students will partner with students from engineering or with students from the med school. So partnering and developing the right initial founding team is a great way to sort of round out. And that's another role that universities have, is to create those connections and to be a place for collaborations.
And you talked about community when we first started this conversation. Is mentoring something that Jack Dorsey from Twitter, a St. Louis native, has talked about? Is that mentoring happening here, and is that something you agree would be vitally important?
Yeah, I actually, I don't absolutely agree with Jack. I'll have to have a talk with him because I think St. Louis does a phenomenal job with mentoring. In fact, it's one of the biggest advantages I sell to my students. We have several phenomenal mentoring institutions here, like Innovate VMS, like the I-10 network. I hate to leave any out. There's others, actually. And one of the great things about St. Louis is you are 1 degree of separation from any leader in any industry in this town, especially if you come out of one of our universities. But even not, if you're affiliated with Arch Grants, if you're affiliated with Capital Innovators, if you're a resident at T-Rex, if you're part of any of these community organizations, the doors are open to you. And I don't know if you can say the same thing in New York City.
Cliff Holt.